and it was about the New York City Fire Department. And this is years before the 9/11 attacks, and I would say a good number of the firemen, real New York firemen I worked with, who were great guys, are dead in 9/11. So we did this firehouse pilot, and we had Lilo Brancato was in it, who was just got released from a murder conviction. He eventually was involved in a murder of a policeman. We had Edie Falco. We had Burt Young, who was in Chinatown and Rocky. We had some wonderful actors. And then when it came time to pick the lead actor, the lead fireman, they decided that they wanted an actor that they had that had been very successful, CBS I believe, yeah, it was Les Moonves. And they said, we will tell you what, we will guarantee that we'll put the show on the air, guarantee that we will produce 13 episodes, which is half a season, if you take this actor we really like. And so Tom Fontana said yes, and it was Richard Dean Anderson, also known as MacGyver, who was the wrong guy. And when they tested it, his key demographic audience was women over 62 years old. And they didn't like him in this role. And so they never, they were not good to their word. They did not put the show on the air. And they spent a lot of money on it. It was shot in New York, and we did all this firework that was expensive. We were hanging people out of 20-story windows and rescues. And anyway, it was a waste of money.
Then producer David Milch, who produced Deadwood, one of my all-time favorite TV series. I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that he... I wouldn't, no. Because Deadwood was stopped after the third season. There's no real closure to the story which is told in Deadwood. The pilot was directed, of course, and produced by Walter Hill, who is here. And I think he had the budget, or would have had the budget to do a two-episode closing special for Deadwood, and every Deadwood fan was waiting for that to happen. And then he spent that money on a series called John from Cincinnati.
Like that money and a lot more.
Yes, so please tell us something about John from Cincinnati and why we didn't see Deadwood, the end of Deadwood.
Well, I was David Milch is a like I say, I worked for Martin Scorsese. I think he's a brilliant, brilliant man. I don't know if he's a genius, and time will tell. I worked, and I don't know if the one person I will say that I ever have known that I will, go on the record saying he's a genius is David Milch. And he's crazy, absolutely crazy. He's one of the most generous people I've ever met, one of the craziest people I've ever met, just brilliant. And so he was a co-creator of NYPD Blue, which was a huge successful TV show in America, which gave him a lot of status. And then HBO came to him and they developed the Deadwood show together. And it was one of my favorite shows of all time. And I was supposed to direct an episode, but I had pre-committed to do the Masters of Horror, and I honored my commitment, so I couldn't do the Deadwood. But I met David, and my good friend Kem Nunn is a novelist who writes these surf noir novels. He was and remains a surfer in his later years. And David, I don't know what happened with David and HBO and Deadwood, why it came to an end, but it did. And David, they kind of didn't want to proceed with Deadwood for reasons I don't know, but they did. They wanted to keep David happy, which once you cancel Deadwood, nothing in the world was going to make him happy. And so they allowed him to direct this, to develop the show John from Cincinnati, which was about this character that John, who comes from another dimension. It lands on Earth, it comes to Earth, but it's not it's not handled in fantasy terms. And you get to realize eventually that he's some sort of spiritual being that enters the world of just the lowest rent drug addicts and criminals and scoundrels and bikers. And anyway, that was David's project after Deadwood, and it was really a lot of fun. But David was so angry with HBO that he was spending by a factor of 3 over budget. and just running wild, and they canceled the show after the first season. But as I say, when I first read the script, I thought there were two movies to be made with this script. One was sort of a traditional booga booga scary movie, and the other was a much deeper and more serious film. And as I say, I wouldn't mind seeing the booga booga version. I'd probably think it was, but I didn't want to make it, and so I wound up working with the writer. The producers sent the writer to Chicago, where I live, and we worked a lot on the script. And then years went by trying to find the money, and eventually I found a gentleman who was a very wealthy man who started investing in small movies, and he wanted to step up into a bigger movie. So he wrote a check to make the movie, and I would only say his name. His name is Jerry Kessler, and he is an honorable man, and you find few in the motion picture business in the United States. So we love Jerry Kessler.
Were you happy with the reception last night?
Yeah, again, I tend to make films that are not like other films. I don't like, you pointed out a few that are kind of like this, but I never saw them until you pointed them out to me. And so I think the film sort of provokes a little bit of what was that sort of reaction, because it sort of brings you in and you think it's just like this kind of kids movie in the beginning, but it's not. To me, it's Hansel and Gretel meets Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. It's a very dark story, and it darkens as it goes. But by having these two wonderful child actors, I think they're so good and they're so much fun to watch. You really get involved with them, and then they start to get in trouble.
So what are the plans for this movie?
Find a distributor and put,
and even in the U.S.?
I hope so. We'll see. I have no idea. That's why I'm out to the festivals, to try and get it seen in the world. I think Germany's a great place for it, because I think it's very much, it has a fairy tale structure, and it's very, it's like a Grimm's fairy tale. It's very dark. These two kids are very much like Hansel and Gretel.
Yes, there were at least 2 German distributors in the audience last night, and
both of them gave me their cards.
Yes, so there's hope there. That's what you said last night, that The Harvest is probably the last film you made on 35mm film.
Yeah, to me, it's sort of goodbye to a style of filmmaking. Film, and the music is a full 22-piece string ensemble orchestral score, and I just don't think I'll be doing that anymore.
Yes, I mean you state that as a fact, but are you?
I'm not certain. But actually, I would like to move on. I would like to tackle digital. It's what's coming. You might as well jump in.
I mean, what counts is the result on the screen, after all.
And there are directors and cinematographers that get very good results in digital. You just have to embrace it and not try and make it look like film, because it's not film.
Yeah. So have you worked with in the digital media?
Just many years ago with Condo Painting, a little documentary I did about a painter. The writer Stephen Lancelotti. I don't know I don't know him deeply and well. I know him for the length of the movie, but he's from New Jersey, and his parents own an Italian restaurant in New Jersey, and I met his mother, and I sort of intuited or figured out the kind of relationship he had with his mother, and I'll leave it at that.
No, but I think it's very brave for one, and extremely interesting, of course, because it makes the Michael Shannon character all the more interesting. And
well, if you go to again, there was a wonderful psychiatrist named Bruno Bettelheim, who started in Germany, and he left Germany, I don't know, in the 30s, and he came to Chicago. And he eventually became the chair of the University of Chicago Psychiatry Department, but his specialty was children. And he wrote a book that in the USA won the National Book Award for nonfiction. It was called The Uses of Enchantment. And it was his theory that fairy tales were exceptionally useful to children, in symbolic ways taught them how to assimilate, make the transition from childhood to mature adult, and getting away from one's parents and becoming one's true self. So, And he analyzed some of the great fairy tales, and in the Hansel and Gretel story, there is the Wicked Witch, which we have in this. There's always often a weak husband, which we have in this, and then we have the little boy and the little girl in the woods, which we have. So there's a lot of Hansel and Gretel in this story.
Yeah, and in the original Hansel and Gretel story, there's the mother who sends them into the woods and the witch, and here these two characters are combined in one.